My neighbor installed a generator that rattled my walls every night. I asked if he could muffle it. He said, "Move if it bothers you." So, I filed a noise complaint. When he got the violation notice, he threw his coffee at my car. I waited until his permit expired. What I did next got him fined $3,000. I bought this house in central Missouri 4 years ago. Small place, nothing fancy. But it was mine. Quiet neighborhood, mostly older people. Everyone kept to themselves. I liked that. I work long shifts at a hospital, and when I come home, I just want peace. That changed last year when Jeff moved in next door. At first, no issues. He seemed like your average mid-50s guy, divorced, kept his yard trimmed. But then, one night in the middle of summer, I was watching TV when I heard this deep mechanical rumble. I thought something was wrong with my AC. But it wasn't that. The whole wall next to the living room started vibrating like a subwoofer was pressed against it. I walked outside to figure it out, and that's when I saw it. Jeff had installed one of those big, industrial-looking standby generators in his backyard, running full blast. No enclosure. Just this giant gray box humming like a damn freight train. I figured maybe it was a one-time thing, like maybe he was testing it. Nope. That thing turned on every single night, usually around 10 or 11 p.m., and sometimes it would stay on until 3 or 4 in the morning. I'm not a light sleeper, but this thing shook the walls. It felt like my house was alive. I couldn't even hear my TV. I tried earplugs, white noise machines, sleeping pills. Nothing worked. It messed with my sleep so badly that I started nodding off during meetings at work. After about a week of this, I decided to talk to him. I walked over around 8 p.m. one night and knocked on his door. He opened it with a drink in his hand and said, "Hey, what's up?" I kept it calm. I said, "Hey, just wondering if there's a way to reduce the noise from your generator. It's pretty loud, and it runs really late." He stared at me for a second, then smirked and said, "Move if it bothers you." That was it. No epalegi. No explanation. Just that smug line. I was so stunned, I didn't even reply. I just nodded and walked back to my house. After that, it got worse. He knew it bothered me, so it felt like he ran it longer and louder. Sometimes even during the day, when it wasn't needed. I swear he did it out of spite. I did some research and found out our city has a noise ordinance, no more than 55 decibels at night. His generator was way over that. I downloaded a noise meter app just to confirm. Even standing inside my house, it hit 60 to 65 dB. So, I filed a complaint with the city. Took photos, video, and noise readings. I filled out the paperwork and emailed it to code enforcement. About a week later, I came home from work and saw a notice taped to Jeff's front door. Big yellow paper. Noise ordinance violation. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. That same night, I parked my car in the driveway, like usual. When I came back out the next morning, my hood was covered in coffee. Not a cup placed gently. Thrown. Still dripping down the windshield. I saw the empty cup near the curb, gas station logo, still wet. I knew it was him. No one else in the neighborhood had beef with me. I cleaned it up, took photos, and started documenting everything. A few days later it happened again. Then cigarette butts on my porch. Then a cracked egg on my windshield. Always late at night. Always quiet. But deliberate. I filed a police report. Not much they could do unless I caught him on video. So I installed a camera facing my driveway. I didn't say a word to Jeff after that. I acted like nothing happened. But I watched. I waited. About 2 months later, I found something interesting on the city's online permit portal. Jeff had pulled a temporary noise exemption permit for the generator, but it had expired 2 weeks ago. It wasn't renewed. Then I remembered something else. He had built this little patio extension in his backyard shortly after moving in. Just a few feet of concrete, maybe 8 by 10 with a little overhang roof and lights. But I'd never seen a permit for that. So I checked. No permit. The city had flagged it last year, but nothing had been followed up on. So I filed another complaint. This time for unpermitted construction. 2 weeks later, a building inspector came out. I watched him walk around Jeff's backyard, clipboard in hand. He left a second notice on the door. A week after that, boom. $3,000 fine for violating city building codes. Plus an order to tear down the patio or bring it up to code at his own expense. Jeff didn't throw coffee after that. I haven't seen him smile once since the day that fine showed up. But I'm not done yet. After the $3,000 fine hit, Jeff went quiet. No coffee, no trash, no yelling. But he didn't talk to me either. He'd come out to mow his lawn or take the trash out, and we'd both pretend the other didn't exist. But I noticed things. He stopped inviting people over. The lights in his house stayed off most nights. His grass grew longer than usual, and he didn't fix the sagging patio roof. He started parking his truck down the street instead of in his driveway, like maybe he didn't want it near my camera. I figured he was licking his wounds. Then, about a month later, the generator came back on. Louder. Longer. I checked the noise permit portal again. No new exemption filed. This time, I called the city directly. The guy on the phone looked up the property and confirmed it. No permit, no inspection request, and no variance. I asked, "So, is that a violation again?" He said, "Absolutely." 2 days later, another notice was posted on Jeff's door. Another fine pending review. I watched him rip the notice off the door and throw it in the trash, like a child throwing a tantrum. That night, I found a small gash on my rear tire. Still had the receipt from the tire shop. $186. My camera didn't catch him, but I logged the time and date anyway. Added it to my folder. At that point, I wasn't even mad. I was cold. Focused. I started going deeper into public records. I found out Jeff used to be a contractor.
Small time.
Owned a business out of his home. But his license had been revoked for safety violations and failing inspections. Then I found the kicker. He was doing unlicensed handyman work around the neighborhood. Installing cabinets, fixing decks, small roofing repairs. All under the table. I knew this because I saw his truck parked at a house 2 streets down for 4 days in a row, tools and materials piled in the back. I made a note. Then I filed a report with the state contractor licensing board. Included dates, addresses, and vehicle photos. The state took it seriously. They sent someone to interview me. I gave them everything. The fines, the generator, the retaliation, the camera footage of coffee-stained mornings. They said they were opening an investigation. 2 weeks later, I saw the state vehicle outside Jeff's house. Official-looking guy, clipboard in hand, taking photos of Jeff's truck. Jeff came out and they talked for maybe 5 minutes. I couldn't hear anything. Then the state guy handed him an envelope and left. Jeff didn't go back inside. He just stood in his driveway staring at nothing. The next day, a big white sticker showed up on his generator. Equipment tagged, Operation Prohibited Pending Review. And that was when the shouting started. He screamed into the phone on his porch. Slammed his trash can down hard enough to crack the lid. He kicked his fence so hard it splintered. I kept my blinds shut and let him burn out. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I thought the sticker on the generator would finally shut him down. But a week later, I heard it again. Not as loud, but still definitely on. At first, I thought maybe it was my imagination. But I stepped outside, and yeah, he'd somehow peeled off the state tag and started the thing back up. The sound wasn't as bad as before, which meant he'd probably tried to tamper with the unit to make it seem quieter. But it still crossed the line. I called the state investigator who'd come out before. Left a voicemail explaining what I heard and that the sticker had been removed. The next day, they called me back.
"We'll escalate this," they said.
Thanks for keeping us updated. 3 days after that, Jeff got hit with another visit. This time, 2 guys in plain clothes with a marked state vehicle. I don't know what they said to him, but he looked wrecked afterward. Red face, hands shaking, pacing up and down his front yard. He kicked a flower pot across the driveway. I just watched from inside, quiet. I didn't hear the generator after that. But the silence didn't mean he was done. A week later, I got a letter in the mail from the HOA board. Apparently, Jeff had filed a complaint saying I was harassing him with a camera and making false legal reports. It was total BS, but I still had to respond. I sent the board a copy of the police report, the city citations, the state notice, and clips from the camera showing the coffee incidents. It took them 2 weeks to rule in my favor, but they did.
His complaint was dismissed.
That's when I started noticing a white sedan parked across from my house. Not every day, but often enough to make me uncomfortable. Always empty. Always running. Never stayed more than 15 minutes. At first, I thought it was just someone waiting for a kid to get off the bus or something. But it kept happening mornings, evenings, even once around midnight. I started to get paranoid. Was it Jeff? Someone he knew? So I called the non-emergency line. Gave them the license plate number. A week later, an officer knocked on my door. Told me the car was registered to someone in a different town. Said they'd follow up. The car stopped showing up after that. But Jeff started walking his dog right up to the edge of my property every single night. Staring at my house. Never saying a word. Just standing there for a few seconds before moving on. I didn't respond. I didn't even look at him. I upgraded my camera system. Got full-color night vision. One for the backyard. One for the side yard. Wired into a hard drive, not the cloud. I wanted proof of everything. I was already prepared for the next time he messed up. Because it was coming. I wasn't the only one who noticed Jeff acting off. One of the other neighbors, Chris, a guy 2 doors down who mostly kept to himself, stopped me while I was bringing groceries in. Said, "Hey, has Jeff been bothering you too?" I played it cool. "What makes you ask?" Chris looked around and lowered his voice. He offered to fix my back deck. Said he'd do it cheaper if I paid cash. I didn't think much of it until I saw state guys at his place last month. Then last week, he came back, real aggressive, wanting to know why I hadn't hired him. That was the pattern. Turns out Jeff had been trying to hustle work from a bunch of people on the street. Some said yes, some said no, but everyone agreed. He got weird when you told him no. Pushy. Moody. Short-tempered. I told Chris what happened with the generator, the fines, the damage to my car. His eyes got wide.
Damn.
That explains a lot. A few days later, I got a message from a block number. No caller ID. Just a voicemail. "You like calling the city on people? Better watch yourself." No name. No context. But I knew exactly who it was meant for. I sent the recording to the police. They logged it but said without proof of who sent it, there wasn't much they could do unless it escalated. That same week, I came home from work and found dog crap smeared across my front door handle. Not left there.
Smeared.
It took me an hour to clean it off. My hands were shaking the whole time. Not from fear, but from rage. I was past the point of being scared. I was methodical now. I checked the cameras. Nothing caught directly, too much glare from the porch light. But I saw a shadow moving away from my yard around 3:14 a.m., same size and build as Jeff. I added it to the log. Then I did something I hadn't done before. I talked to my lawyer. She wasn't a trial lawyer, more estate and civil stuff. But she took one look at my documentation and said, "If this keeps up, we could file for a restraining order. Maybe even sue for harassment." I wasn't ready to go that far yet. But I wanted Jeff to know I was prepared. So the next day, I walked out when he was trimming his front hedge. I didn't say much. Just held up my phone, tapped the camera app, and said, "It's all recorded now. Every angle. Every night." He didn't say anything. Just stared at me. His jaw clenched, hands shaking on the trimmer. That night, the generator didn't run. No coffee. No trastes. Just silence. But I didn't relax. Because when guys like Jeff go quiet, it's never the end. They're just winding up for the next hit. 2 weeks passed. Nothing happened. No noise, no threats, no new damage. It was the most peace I'd had in months. But I didn't trust it. I kept checking the city portal. No new permits, no appeals from Jeff. The state still had his case under review. I figured he was laying low, hoping it would all blow over. Then the letters started. Not in the mail. Not official. Just plain white envelopes left on my porch. No return address. Inside were single sheets of paper with typed messages. "Hope you sleep well, snitch. You don't belong here. You've made a powerful enemy." I kept all of them. Put them in my folder. Showed the police. Same response. They took it seriously, but without fingerprints or video of him dropping them off, there wasn't much they could do. No charges. Just a report. It was enough to rattle me, though. I stopped sitting on my porch, kept my blinds closed, installed motion lights on every corner of my house. Then one morning, I woke up and saw spray paint across my garage door. Big black letters. Rat. That was it. One word, but it hit hard. My stomach turned. My hands went numb. I filed another police report. This time, the officer was more direct. You sure it's him? I nodded. I can't prove it, but who else? The officer didn't argue.
Keep documenting.
You might have enough for a protective order soon. I cleaned the paint off myself. Didn't call a service. I wanted it gone. I didn't want the reminder. But the whole time, I felt like he was watching me from somewhere. I started getting up earlier, checking the yard, checking the camera footage every morning. Sleep became harder again. Not because of noise, but because of the feeling, the tension, the waiting. Then, out of nowhere, the city sent a notice to the entire block. It was about upcoming inspections. Apparently someone, maybe another neighbor, had complained about multiple homes having unapproved additions and unsafe structures. The notice was general, didn't name anyone. But it meant they were sending someone out to inspect every property, including Jeff's. I didn't file that complaint. I thought maybe Chris did, or someone else Jeff had tried to pressure. When the inspectors came around, I stayed inside. But I watched from the window as they walked through Jeff's yard with clipboards and measuring tape. I couldn't hear what was said, but I saw one of them take a lot of photos of his shed, the patio, and the old electrical panel he'd half attached to his side wall. Jeff was out there with them, red-faced, waving his arms. At one point, he looked straight at my house. Like he knew. Like he thought I did it. That night, the generator didn't run. But at 3 a.m., someone rang my doorbell and ran.
Twice.
No one there on the cameras, just the sound of footsteps fading. And I knew he was trying to drag me into a war again. After the doorbell stunt, I called the police again. Gave them the time, footage, everything. Still no ID, no arrest. But now they were starting to see the pattern. One of the officers came by the next morning, a younger guy I hadn't met before. He took a look at all the reports, shook his head, and said, "This is harassment. You're doing the right thing keeping records." He gave me his card and told me to call if anything else happened. I felt like I was living in a pressure cooker. Days passed. I barely slept. The camera footage became the last thing I checked before bed, and the first thing I watched when I woke up. Then something strange happened. Jeff disappeared. No one saw him for days. His truck didn't move. Trash didn't go out. Lights stayed off. At first, I figured he was gone for the weekend. But then a week passed. Then 2. I found out from Chris that the city had posted a notice on Jeff's back fence, something about a zoning review and failure to comply. Apparently, the inspection turned up more violations. He might have been looking at more fines, even legal trouble. Then one morning, a moving truck pulled up. Not a full-service one, just a beat-up U-Haul. 2 guys loaded up furniture. No sign of Jeff. Later that day, I saw a realtor's sign go up in his yard. For sale. By owner. Just like that, he was gone. No warning.
No hubiera. No final tantrum.
Just silence.
The truck left.
The house sat empty. The weeds in his yard started growing fast, and the city came out a week later to cite the property for maintenance. I watched the whole thing from my porch, coffee in hand. The same porch where I used to scrub off coffee stains and check for dog crap. It felt surreal. But not satisfying. Not really. Because no one ever said, "You were right." No one ever apologized. There was no moment where he admitted what he did or why he did it. There was no closure. Just a for sale sign and a ghost of a neighbor who caused months of hell. Sometimes I still catch myself listening for that generator, even though I know he's gone. It's quiet now, the kind of quiet I used to love. But it doesn't feel peaceful. It just feels like proof that someone can come into your life, tear it up for no reason, and leave without ever looking back. And the worst part is, Nobody ever really tells you what to do with all that anger once the noise finally stops.